However, death came up. A knife just went inside my brain. I'm like, I don't want to feel this. Why do I feel this? No. Oh, why do I have to feel this? It wasn't really the sensation so much that gave me grief. It was my aversion to it. I was releasing past traumata of actually past lives. It took me 7 years until I was emotionally ready to actually face these really deep things. And my muscle of equanimity has gotten way stronger. My fourth Vipassana meditation seminary and what I learned. Perfect equanimity. So I just came back from my fourth Vipassana 10-day seminary course where I was sitting close to Nairobi. And I've had some amazing experiences. If you don't, know my experiences prior to this, I will make like a playlist that I link here of the prior courses, because I make these videos in order for you to understand a bit, just to understand what other people experience, right? Because everybody has a different experience with every seminar. Also me, I had a different experience with every seminar, and it's really helpful sometimes to just hear other people's perspectives, because there's so little time when you have the seminaries to exchange with the students that are there. And also for people who want to know about Vipassana before they did it. So the background is my third seminary in 2016. It's been 7 years, and it was a lot. It was a lot, and I couldn't really handle it. And then I was like, no. Let me not deal with this. And then I had a lot of different things happening to my life that kept me for 7 years from even considering to go back to a meditation seminary and restart my progress and my process. But now I finally had the time to invest in myself again a bit, efforts and time in myself. And I decided, yes, let's do it. Let's go back to Vipassana, because there was this thing in my head that I had since 2014. So my first seminary was in 2014, and then I had this amazing experience that I didn't know was possible just by sitting down and meditating. And then right after that I developed a headache. Maybe I had the headache before, but I was never really conscious of it, because I wasn't really that conscious of sensations in my body. But I was then very conscious of it, and especially in the meditation it always came, that this headache, and I meditated literally to get rid of the headache, which is the worst you can do. Is exactly the opposite of what Vipassana is supposed to help you with. But I didn't get that at the point. I got it now with this seminary, because I went to the seminary and I thought I was going to go through the experience of some very important people in my life dying in the last 7 years. And I thought this was something that was going to come up. But it didn't. However, death came up. So my headache, I knew already this was going to be a big part of the whole thing. And my goal was to practice my equanimity. It was not anymore to get rid of any physical sensations, not even in the long run, but to be stronger mentally, to be able to withstand all these sensations that I might feel with a more calm mind, with a more relaxed body. And that was already the first insight that I really understood this seminary, that equanimity is not just a mental thing for me. It has to be a physical relaxation, right? Like physically really relaxing my muscles. If I stay tense but equanime as a mental construct, it won't work. The technique won't work on me. I really have to relax. And I kind of experienced that already in my first seminary, but I didn't really understand how much it's one. So for me now, equanimity equals relaxation, physical relaxation. So that was the first deep insight that I really experienced. And again, mental concepts and mental insights and mental understandings conceptually is something so different than the actual experience. And that's why I do Vipassana, because It's the experience that matters. It's the experience that is life-changing, not just a mental concept, right? So I got to experience equanimity equals physical relaxation. Now, that also means to be able to sit, to feel anything that, even the worst storm raging inside your body, but physically relaxing while looking at it, while feeling it. And that is a skill, right? That's like a muscle that you train. And my muscle of equanimity has gotten way stronger. Also because I understood that my physical sensations, and I feel like the headache sensations that I had were sankharas. Sankharas are things that could be described as like traumata, or things that you had aversions, like deep emotional aversions or against, or cravings to feel something else. That is physical sensations that you had aversions against or cravings for. And they kind of like get written inside your bodily memory. And then when you do Vipassana, they come back up. And if you stay equanime, relaxed in my case, then they just work through your body for a while, and then they get weaker and weaker, and they really disappear after a while. But they always take their own time, right? You never know how long it will take for this sensation to actually dissipate. So starting to crave not to feel it anymore is like really counterproductive, because then you attach an emotional attachment again of craving to feel something else, or having aversion against this feeling, not wanting to feel it, and that kind of like manifests it again more in your body. And that reminded me also of Gerald Hüther, which is a German neuroscientist, and he said that we learn much better when our learning is connected with an emotion. And this seminary, I really felt that emotional part, and that craving and aversion for me also are not just mental concepts, they're emotions. They're really, really emotions. And since in my second seminary, I learned that I can actually physically feel the emotions in my body, that really helped me, because I had this headache and it was like piercing knives in my head, and I would never know which one, because there was not only this spot, there were spots here, there were spots there, there was a spot there, there was a spot there, there was a spot here, another spot there. So there were lots of spots that were like usually like very tight, and then out of a sudden there would be like a knife just went inside my brain, right, like right there in my head, or right there in my head. And so I practiced, the first 3 days, and the 5th day, and then we started to do Vipassana. And then what happened was, obviously I struggled. You always struggle, because finding peace and calm and quiet while looking at the storm inside, and the things that you really don't want to feel, or that you crave for feeling but you don't feel, is very difficult, right? So struggling, and then I had a revelation. And that's the most important thing, because I had this headache, these piercing knives in my, or one piercing knife at a time, they always changed, in my head. And then I realized I feel the aversion against it in my chest. So I had the piercing knife here, and then in my chest, it was, for me, I'm very visual, it was like a red orb coming into my chest, and it was the aversion. And the aversion is like, it's in the direction for me of anger. I'm like, I don't want to feel this, why do I feel this? No. It's like anger, and I guess that's why in my mind it was red, but it was a physical sensation in my chest, and I could differentiate the headache sensation, the piercing knife, from the physical sensation that my emotional attachment, my aversion with that sensation in the head was. And then I could focus on my aversion rather than on the feeling, and be calm and relaxed against my aversion. I always have like at least 20% with the feeling still, with the sensation, the original sensation, but also with emotional reaction of the sensation of my emotional reaction. I have at least also like 50% of my attention, and being calm towards that sensation of emotional reaction And then it disappeared, like it dissipated, the sensations dissipated way more quicker, because it wasn't really the sensation so much that gave me grief. It was my aversion to it. And this time I could feel it physically, my aversion. It was not just a mental concept. I could feel, oh yeah, the aversion. Then with other sensations, or even with the same sensation, there was also the craving. The craving of not feeling it. And the craving for me is also emotional. It's very emotional, and it's more like, oh, why do I have to feel this? Why can't I just feel something else or not feel this, And so for me, this was also a very emotional feeling, also in the same area in the chest, like around here. But it was like in my mind's eye a white orb, right? And it felt differently. It's so needy, and it's so anything I don't want to be. But it was so helpful to feel this, and also with cravings, of not feeling what this knife in my head. I could focus on that sensation in my chest, being the craving, representing the craving, the emotional craving that I have of not feeling what I feel, and it would slowly subside. And that helped me so much, because what happened was I had these things, these sensations in my head, and it got more and more clear that it was like wounds. It felt like wounds to the head trauma, right? And then what happened at a certain moment was I had, for instance, one was like here across the nose until like up here, and the sensation got very, very strong. And then out of a sudden, in my mind's eye, I saw the face of a man in front of me. And that man, now, trigger warning, it's gonna be violent, because that man had, it was the last moment before his death. Somehow I knew that. And then he died from having a shovel shoved up his face, like this, being brutally murdered. And when he came closer and closer, when he came that close, the sensation was like really like somebody put a thing there and split my head in half. And then, I stayed with my aversion and with the feeling, and really calmed myself down. And then the man kind of like went through me. And when he went through me, the sensation started to dissipate and disappear. And then I never felt it again. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so throughout the days, the rest of the 5 days, there were like lots of people. I saw lots of faces. I never knew these people, right? They were strangers. But I felt like they showed me them. And then but it was the sensation, right? So the sensation was showing me when they became very strong, and at the climax of the feeling, where it was like hardly bearable, they showed me the face and something that they wanted to show me, and then they kind of like got through me, and I felt like I was releasing past traumata of actually past lives, right? Of people that I've been before, somehow, whether that is really me, my soul being reborn, or maybe ancestors, in my DNA, or whatever that was. But it was like they show me who they were and what was the very traumatic experience with their head injury that they died from. And there was, I guess it was strokes, or really knives in the heads cut open. It was horrible sensations. But after they went through me, and I guess it was between 60 and 80 people in the 5 days, they disappeared. Like the sensations disappeared. Now, the sensations didn't disappear fully, because I still had the emotional attachment. And the emotional attachment, or well, I call it like a craving not to have a sensation, an emotional attachment, right? I call an aversion against a sensation that you have an emotional attachment, because it's really emotional for me, and I could really feel that this time. And these emotional attachments, cravings or aversions, they kind of like keep the memory of the sensation in your body. They really manifest that memory within your body. So it will take me a while to get rid of these kind of like memories, because my aversion against these sensations is kind of like still alive, which now I see as an opportunity, because my sensation in my head after all these people went through me was, I'm empty. I have an empty head, and it was so liberating, because I had a full head full of like pressure for like 7 years, well, almost 9 years, you know. And I didn't know how good it feels to have an empty head. And now I feel like there is nothing, like no other entity anymore in my head. It's just me, basically. It's just me and my emotional attachment to these, sensations that I had, this emotional aversion, or this craving for other sensations, or not to feel the sensation for so long. And so now I can work on changing that emotional reaction from being an emotional reaction to being just calmness and relaxedness. And basically that was life-changing, because now I can, I can differentiate, because before I couldn't differentiate between the sensations that I would feel, because mostly the first few seminaries it was in the chest area, in the body area, not so much in the head. Or when it was in the head, I didn't really get it, but the ones that were in the chest, I could easily kind of like sit through. And now I know that, because my emotional center is also here. So when I would concentrate on my lungs burning, I would also feel this, like this sensation would kind of like be part of it, because it's the same area, right? The sensation of my emotion, that my craving or aversion that would come up. And so that's why it was with certain things so easy, and so so much easier for me to go through it, rather than with other sensations that were not there. But this time I could really feel I have this sensation, and then I have an emotional reaction that gives it a second sensation in my body. And I kind of like have to focus a bit more on that emotional reaction rather than just the sensation. And that helped me a lot through my course. Now, obviously, in the course, it was very intense. I could feel it very intense when, you close your system with metta, with love. Then afterwards, all the sensations are not as intense anymore. Some are, but especially the emotions, they tend to be a little more difficult to feel in the everyday life when I walk down the street. But now I it's like the second day. Yesterday I came out, now it's the second day, and I feel that emotional reaction very physically, very strong now every time, and I'm so happy and so grateful. And I think, yes, I wanted to share that with you all, because I think that might be helpful, because everybody's experiences differently, but like feeling the emotions as sensations in the body is something that is like a game changer for me. And aversion and equanimity, aversion and craving are also emotions for me. They're very emotional sensations that I can physically sense in my body. And equanimity is kind of like also a very physical sensation that I can work with, So it always helps me very much to work with the body. I mean, that's Vipassana, right? We work through our mind and clean and clear our mind out through physical sensations, with the help of the body as an anchor to actually work with. So I hope that helped you a bit, or inspired you, or made you maybe want to sit another course, or sit a course in the first place, because you're like, what is this experience? But you need to be ready, right? It took me 7 years until I was emotionally ready to actually face these really deep things. And it only came up, I think, so deep because I'm going through my body. Not just the surface, but always inside my body. I try to feel every little square centimeter, square inch of my body, so I can feel the entire body. And I feel like only then these big things come up. But I also have a tendency for me to be easier. My mind immediately in the first seminary felt very, very comfortable going there, going inside the body. because I have a dancer background, and so it was my job to feel my body, at least to a certain extent, not so much the sensations, but for me it was always important to feel the sensations, to know what's going on in my body. And so, yeah, I hope this content helped you a bit. I would love to hear your experiences in the comments with Vipassana and maybe your fourth seminary, or if you had any similar experiences at all with Vipassana or in your life, and how also let me know in the comments how good you can incorporate these experiences in your everyday life, how easy it is, or what helps you to do that. See you around. Perfect equanimity to us, all sensations inside of me is